PerfActionist Musicians Podcast. Take action to find healthy perfectionism. Discussions about the background of successful careers in music performance, arts and science.
Hello dear listeners. Today I brought you someone who has been playing in the Bergen Philharmonic Orchestra since he had graduated from the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London. I recorded our intensive talk at the Crescendo Summer Institute in Tokai, and this is the reason you will hear a lot of background noise, including musical pieces being practiced. The interview, I think, contains a great deal about effective practicing. The core message of our talk is how Dag discovered at the beginning of his professional career, which was also the beginning of his family life, that he couldn't continue preparing for his performances the way he got used to in college. And as he said, this was a luxury at that time. Instead, he had to adopt time-saving strategies with an enormous amount of focusing. Come and listen to how he did it. So,
yes.
First of all, I really thank you to take time to do this interview. And I'm very much interested in your experiences, which can be shared with younger musicians about your lessons you learned throughout your career, how your approach changed, and basically to help younger musicians to realize that it is normal to have difficulties, it is normal to have failures, it is so great to realize new things. So basically, I really would like to inspire musicians.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Of course it's a very bumpy road. It's not a straight line. It curves, and there are mountain tops, and there are valleys, and there are defeats, and there are victories, and it's a complex journey, but it's hopefully a lot of fun too. Yes.
If you think back to the beginning of your musical career, what changes do you discover in yourself, comparing yourself now with about over 30 years of professional experience, I understand, and let's say when you were just about to graduate as a musician?
Okay, so if we look at, I graduated and I finished my education when I was around 24, 25. And I was lucky and privileged because I already then had established a freelance relationship with the orchestra, which I am working with now, which is the Bergen Philharmonic Orchestra in Norway. So I auditioned for them my last year in college, the Guildhall in London, and I got the job that I have now. So maybe a difference between me and some of the people I meet is that I have not done this audition circuit. I have not gone through many years of auditioning for different orchestras and getting to the last round and then also get eliminated in the first rounds and spending lots of time and resources on the audition process. So, which I realize in hindsight has been very lucky for me, and I think also very lucky for my mental health, because what I see with colleagues who eventually get a job after a long time of auditioning, it's a terrible stress and a terrible ordeal for one's mentality to withstand that rejection and also continually practice and prepare. So a bit on the aside of the original question, but I would like to express my deep admiration and respect for the people who has to stand in this. And these are also very, very good players, exceptional players on highest level.
You mean those musicians who are auditioning?
Yeah, the musicians.
And you're working with as well.
Who are in the circuit, who are working, getting freelance positions, are being used as extra musicians, who we hire for a week, who we hire for half a year, and then they go on somewhere else. Okay, there's a tremendous freedom and attraction in that kind of lifestyle, but it's one that is mentally hard to sustain. At least it would have been to me. When it comes to my personal experience of what's different from back then, I think the biggest difference from coming from college and then go into a full-time job is that the entire support network that you have in college just vanishes overnight. Yeah. I mean, in college, I had a very high-paid, very competent, high-level professor whose time was solely devoted to me and my issues for 1 to 3 hours every week on a one-on-one master-apprentice format. In addition to this, I had a separate chamber music teacher who was coaching the chamber music group I was in. In addition to this, I had a piano player whom I had 2 sessions with weekly. Yeah, all these highly skilled professionals who were there to support me and my project. And my development and my reflection as a musician, and also developing my abilities, that outside look, those outside ears that they give us feedback, vanished overnight. So I was sitting in the orchestra and thinking, okay, what now? Who am I playing to? Am I good enough? Am I measuring up? And all of a sudden there's a whole new repertoire to learn, because I haven't learned all the Mahler symphonies, all the Beethoven symphonies. I haven't learned Bruckner. I haven't learned the contemporary music pieces we were playing. So it was kind of a crisis to find my way of using all I had learned in order to produce professional results week by week by week by week. In my orchestra, the production format is we play 1 concert per week and then we change the program. And this can be very steep and very difficult if you haven't been through the repertoire before. So this was at the same time when I started with a family and we have small children and we got established in town. So there were many of these life pressures that came in at the same time. So I learned very quickly how to be very efficient in my practicing and very efficient in my preparations, and to find all the useful shortcuts, because I couldn't have the luxury of sitting down with a cup of coffee and reflect over the meaning of life and Mahler for 2 hours to find out an artistic approach. No, I had to learn the fingerings, I had to learn the technical execution of the difficult bits, and then move on to the next piece.
Mm-hmm. So I understood, based on what you were saying, that sudden private life change, sudden professional life change.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm very curious about how you coped. You just kind of gave a hint that you didn't have time to wonder about Mahler's symphony.
No.
But I'm very much interested in the details. That what was the exact technique that you had to change. So you had, if you describe your technique of practicing and preparing at the college, and how did it change after you've been appointed as a full-time musician at the orchestra?
Yes. Well, in college, I basically only had myself to worry about and my needs and my process. And of course, in one sense, it's a luxurious lifestyle when it comes to the tasks you're set to solve. But I could then typically spend 4, 5, 6 hours very leisurely doing the exercises and looking into repertoire. I could do a lot of background study for the repertoire I was preparing. I could go very detailed and very deeply into the different scores. But then the sheer practicality of this whole new lifestyle change. Okay, so I have to deliver my daughter to kindergarten. I have to pick up my daughter from kindergarten. We have to organize our private lives, take care of the family, have a family life. All the different needs of this new situation, and in this context, to find the time to prepare for also the repertoire that I'm doing at work. So I became very good at maybe learning very, very large amounts of repertoire in very, very short time.
How did you do that?
Finding shortcuts, being very conscientious and very aware in rehearsal. How can I do this now on the first time I play it? How do I find the quickest way of doing this? And also,
what did you discover?
What I discovered is that with the proper mental focus, the things that are easy to play is very often the ones that pays highest dividends, because here you get the change of result and the quality of result the quickest. Yeah? But it was mainly a question of being able to concentrate when the time is there where I have the full context of the symphony orchestra around me, the full ensemble with me, this is the time I must concentrate and focus, because this is where I get the information. When the rehearsal is over, that is gone. Yeah. So I very often discover that I learn things much faster sitting in an ensemble than spending time before getting to the ensemble. Sometimes this is necessary, but it's often 3, 4, 5 times more time consuming than actually doing the thing in the orchestra, at least to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this suggests to me that you became much more aware.
Oh yes, very much more aware.
As compared to just living the dream.
Yeah.
I'm a violin student at Guildhall or wherever.
Yes. Yeah. And feel for what is the proper way of playing Bach while I'm drinking coffee in the park. Yes. Mm-hmm. No.
There was no time for daydreaming anymore.
That was gone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I could daydream for 5 minutes at a time. Well, I guess the short answer is time management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it was absolutely necessary. Yeah. I had to manage my time so much more efficiently, and also accept that I wasn't able to prepare this up to the same level as some of the college concerts and repertoire, because I had to move on to the next thing.
Was it difficult?
Yes.
Because I mean, to learn a complex symphony in a week, which you haven't played before, even mentally and physically is very demanding. Yeah. So how did you manage?
Well, most of the learning I simply had to do when I was sitting on the podium with the colleagues. So that is a situation which is created where you have the quietness and you have the focus and you have sort of the direction organized for you. Yes, you come in and you sit in a ready-made context. And I understood very quickly that, okay, this is my time to learn this. And of course, I kind of self-selected for the job because this is what I wanted to do, and I applied for this, and this is sort of, this is the job. I think I learned the necessity of being very focused on the job and concentrating and see the solution I can find while I'm sitting in the orchestra, while we are repeating things and doing the rehearsal process. And then reserve for after the rehearsal the things that were difficult and where I needed to do study to get more insight. And maybe 1 week I had 30 minutes altogether to do this outside. So then that time becomes very, very precious. Mm-hmm. And I have to be focused and I have to be intelligent about how I use it. Mm-hmm. And that's perhaps something I take with me when I teach and coach share that, okay, it is how you think about things that is so central to the job you're doing. It's not just playing. If you spend 5 minutes really conscientiously focusing on problem solution, identifying what's difficult and devising a method, or a hypothesis for how to solve it, and you do that and you think about what you do and you have an imagination of how it should sound, how you think about progress. Yeah, and maybe then you can condense 1 hour of mindless playing into 10 minutes of actual progress.
So 1/6 of the time. I mean, if it's 10 minutes.
Yes. So I think I'm convinced that there are so many ways we can rationalize and speed up sort of automatic intuitive processes if we, in addition, use our intelligence and use our imagination to find quicker ways and to listen carefully to what we are doing and devising methods for making the progress. Of course, the tension is, for me, to have an idea of how things should be better, I always have to imagine myself playing better than what I actually do. Yeah. So when I'm playing, then of course the immediate response is, this is not as good as I want it to sound. But that is a necessary tool, of course, when you're preparing for a concert. After a while, when you're actually going to play it in a concert, this attitude is of course less useful, because then you have to sort of let go. So it's this whole mental seesaw.
So you mentioned so many important stuff, and actually I would like you to go in detail. I will ask questions in detail about this, just because in case there's a younger student inexperienced with these processes, so that would be like a focus harder or focus better. what is a good focus in practicing, what is a bad focus? Let's start with the bad focus. So what do you consider bad focusing and time wasting in practicing?
Okay, imagine you're a student who are very talented and you do things intuitively and you have sort of found your way of playing without not really thinking about or noticing what you're actually doing. Then this would be something that is very valuable, and then you sort of, it springs out of a very original, a very pure place, which is an ideal for music making. Chances are that there will be some aspects of this playing which is not ideal because you haven't really thought about it. So it can be how you hold the violin, or it can be how you stroke the bow on the string. If a person with this mindset and this background suddenly starts to play a piece which is more difficult than their current level of musical and technical knowledge, then if they don't develop their ability to analyze and to listen, then they will just continue in the old way. And
it will take them to develop, you mean?
Yeah,
much longer time.
Yeah.
And maybe they never met.
And maybe not at all, because they just play instead of practice. And to me, there's a big difference between just playing and practicing, because practicing is very target-oriented. And it is about improvement, and it is about pushing things to the higher level.
Okay, so can we go to the good focusing and this kind of target-oriented practicing? What would you suggest musicians to follow? Obviously, there's not a golden rule, but at least an idea of what it is.
Well, it's difficult. It's so dependent on circumstance and individual characteristics.
How did you do it?
How did I do it? That's a really difficult question, because it's so close to how my own process that I may not even see it myself. But what I am doing is to sit down and slowly play through a piece and discover, okay, where does it flow freely? Where can I sing freely? Where do I meet obstacles? And then I identify where the obstacles are, and I try to look at it through different lenses of techniques of violin playing.
What are these lenses?
This could be what fingering I'm using. Am I playing it in tune? Am I playing it out of tune? Why is this out of tune? Well, probably it's because of some imbalance or difficulty in the hand. What does this go? Why does this occur? Okay, maybe I haven't solidified my left hand technique enough for this stay. Maybe I need to spend some time doing exercises. Then I have to devise the proper exercises. And of course, since I've been doing this professionally for 30 years, then I have this whole backlog and catalog of different exercises and approaches that I can use. So I can, of course, to a violinist, I can go into the very specifics of this. If I do shifts, if I do double stops, and all these things. But I always have to think about and be aware of what I'm doing. And it's also almost kind of a mental health thing to me, because it slows down my thinking. I can't stress through these things faster than my body and my instrument can deal with.
Does it happen to you as well that after practicing session you are calmer and more kind of fulfilled than before?
Yes, because I have to force myself to go into this slowness of thinking.
Why do you find it beneficial?
Why I find it beneficial? Because it's less stressful. And I also sense it's a greater sense of mastery. I can have more confidence in the technical execution of my playing, which also gives me freedom to express myself emotionally and also what is in the music. You can make a comparison between, if we make the dichotomy between technique and musicality, which I really don't believe in, but it's kind of prevalent in how we think about things. Then you can make the comparison that the technique would be the language, and the musicality is what you wish to say with the language. But those two things are so intertwined. So there's no point in developing a language without having anything to say. So I mean, what comes first there? I mean, it's a chicken and egg all over. But the more you think about it, the more you practice, the more you go into this, the more you listen to and sense your own processes. Okay, well then you could get a little bit further in this spiral, or this dialectical, if you like.
Were you ever impatient with yourself during your professional career?
Always. Always.
How does it show?
Well, I want to play better than what I do. Yeah.
How does it affect you, and how do you put yourself back into the right mindset? Because obviously, if you're very impatient, then we become frustrated, therefore we cannot concentrate, and it's a downward spiral. But probably you don't do this. What do you do?
Well, now my life situation is different because the children are grown. So I don't have those private pressures anymore. So I am now in the luxurious position where I can go back into very much of the mindset of my student days, except with accumulated experience and knowledge. And I can make some shortcuts because I know more now. But then back then, I had other things that I wouldn't be able to do now. So
how did you deal with your impatience 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
I probably didn't, or I didn't have the time or peace to address it directly because of the pressures and time commitments.
You just went and you did what was required?
It's as far as I could with what time I had, but far from ideal because there was so much happening. Yeah, that's just modern life for you. And we don't have time to be completely fulfilling or ideal in all of life's endeavors. So there's bound to be compromises.
That
everywhere.
sounds like we need to accept that.
Yes.
That we cannot rule. Actually, there are rules we need to fit into.
Yeah. Yes. I remember speaking to a colleague who, a very high level performing colleague, and he said it as if I should have said it myself. Well, I'm trying to be the perfect family father, I'm trying to be the perfect musician and leader, and I'm trying to keep my body in shape, and I'm trying to this, I'm trying to that, I'm exhausted, I can't do all these things. I mean, do I not measure up as a human being? Yeah. Well, of course you can't do everything. I mean, we are limited. Yeah. So accepting that limitation and maybe...
Do your best.
Do my best, yeah. Sometimes that means I can't play this Brahms symphony in tune. Yeah, that's a difficult admission for a musician. I mean, but if that means you can take the kids to the zoo, or having a peaceful family dinner, or be a present person to as well, maybe those are the important things. I mean, you have to balance and prioritize, and one can't do everything perfect all the time. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I think this balance is extremely important, and not just physically, like balancing time and energy, but balancing these ideas and wishes and pains, like sensing failures or mistakes in our playing.
I noticed, I mean, as we are discussing this, and you asking me specific questions of, how dealing with this in your musicality and your preparation as a professional, and in the back of my head, this awareness is rising very, very strongly, okay? But there's a limit to how much of this is possible because of other pressures in life. So this thing that you say of balancing these different factors is really encroaching very, very heavily. And this must create an imbalance, and this must create a sense of incompleteness, but there's just no way around it, I think. I mean, very few people I know is able to balance these things sort of on the top potential of what is possible. I don't understand it, how some people do it.
There's something which is under sacrifice, I think. Probably they sacrifice something, just we don't see it.
Yeah, that is not visible.
I remember once Itzhak Perlman's wife was saying that Itzhak thinks that the children come home from school by magic.
Yes, for instance, good illustration. Yeah.
He doesn't think about it, so all his mental space probably stays within music.
Yeah, so what we're talking about when it comes to practice, it has then ramifications on gender roles within the marriage and how you practically solve every day. Yeah.
What just you were saying a minute ago about these kind of going with the flow, and there's so many pressures and we need to fulfill and do our best as much as we can, but probably sometimes it's not as good as we wanted. Yeah. Musicians always want have perfect. They want to be so good in everything, including the performance as well. But based on what you were saying, I understood that it's no way. It's impossible. And first step.
Well, at least in some parts of life, these things are much more difficult
it's not
than others.
always. You cannot always do it.
No.
Sometimes you have a better family life, sometimes you have a better career and better performances, but not always is exceptionally good.
No.
And this thing about perfection.
Yeah.
For me, I just understood what you were saying, however you didn't say it exactly, that better to accept that it's not always perfect and live with it. This is normal. This is actually the golden rule, that it's not always perfect. It cannot, should not be, cannot be perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's all the balancing that sometimes focusing on this one is, if I focus on this one and put my energy in, it will be better.
Yeah. And of course, that's fine and well if I also were totally free and autonomous to make these priorities and make these things balance out myself. But very often we have very, very strict external pressures. For instance, if you're not measuring up professionally in your job, you can notice very quickly that start practicing, find the flow, or go somewhere else. Yeah. As you also can discover in your family life, as you also can discover if you let your health go. Yeah. We all have these pressures that really don't wait for things to be convenient. I mean, they're just there. Which makes this balancing act, makes it difficult perhaps, but because of this, maybe even also more necessary. And maybe this is a challenge that we need to train ourselves how to live in these pressures. Yeah. Yeah.
If you had the chance, or maybe you are doing it as well with your students, so what would you advise them to learn this and for them to get trained about this?
Well, I mean, I have to put down a few boundaries about what is my actual role, and particularly in a short summer school like this, where we have 10 days together and I hear the students maybe for 3 or 4 lessons. I see them in a very short snapshot of their lives, and all I really can do is to respond to how I feel them playing immediately in the situation. And by necessity, my focus has to be on the playing of the instrument itself. Yeah. So here I go into methodological things, I go into technical things, how do you solve playing this and this, and I go into stylistic things that has to do with the performance of the music. But of course there are psychological barriers, and there are things that we tell ourselves which is negative, that hinders this. Yeah. And one can even meet students who have who have been told really, really horrible things about themselves, which has nothing to do with their playing, but then it hampers them. I mean, some kids can get harmed by how they have been talked to by others. Yes. So I just have to say, no, you have a talent, you do play beautifully. What this person has said isn't the truth about you, even though I only meet them maybe for 2 or 3 lessons. But that has to be sort of almost like as a presupposition, almost like a creed in the bottom. So sometimes what I perceive as sort of mental things come into the violin playing, and then maybe I can say or hint carefully at a few things.
What are the common things that you notice on students?
I think to be absolutely within the bounds of what should be my professional integrity, and this shouldn't be on tape. Yeah. It needs to then happen outside of the context of this tape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think.
Because I don't know where these boundaries are, so I have to be careful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The reason why I was asking, because I think students, I mean people, not just students, many people, including myself, until I learned that actually I'm not alone. Yeah. I have problems. I mean, everyone has certain problems.
Yes.
And the reason I was asking that if they listen to this from an experienced player, teacher, that's why I was saying very anonymously. So it could be happening here that you collect this information, or can be that you are teaching elsewhere.
Yeah. I can describe a situation which I will not place geographically, and I will not place it in time, but it happened somewhere that I observed someone playing for me within the last 6 or 7 years. at a lesson. The person was very, very technically accomplished. We're playing on objectively on a violinist level that was far above me. I couldn't really touch what this student was able to play, but the student played a very difficult passage and made one small mistake, and I noticed a glance from the student at me, which I perceived to be one of real fear and terror, because of making one minor mistake. And I was thinking, okay, how did you become like this? Yeah. Why did this happen to you? And this was sort of also the impression I got from the interaction. Yeah. Not being a healthcare professional or anything, but I mean, you noticed this. Yeah. So that really sent me thinking, how should one deal with these things? But what I just tentatively tried to convey then, okay, in these lessons we are going to make huge mistakes, because if you're trying new things, it's because the new things are things you don't know from before, and if you're trying things you don't know from before, you're going to make a mistake, and we're going to accept these mistakes. So in my lessons, we are going to try new and dangerous things, and we are going to allow for huge mistakes. What we are not going to allow for is not trying. But finding this way of creating this safe space to try really hard and difficult things and allowing to make mistakes, but maybe even celebrate the mistakes because it shows courage for trying something different. I think that helped a lot, yeah. But of course, you can't change the mind of a person like this, but maybe a little drop and maybe a little suggestion that, okay, you're not a horrible person and you're not a horrible violinist, but try something else. If you try something new, you're going to make mistakes, and that's cool.
My next question would be about these issues that do you think that musicians or young musicians would equate themselves with their musical playing? So if they do a mistake in the playing, they feel very ashamed, so it affects their day and weeks, and they'll...
I do that. I mean, of course, there's also the flip side that the technical and musical and performance demands on the particular part of the music life that we are training ourselves for are very, very high, and you simply have to be able to meet those needs. Yeah, I think it would be better to meet those needs without being harmed mentally. Yeah, if you can find a way of meeting those demands and happily, I mean, joyfully. I mean, it sounds naive, but
No.
But it has to be a freedom project. It has to be a project of liberation and opening up. If it isn't, I mean, why do we spend hours every day in a small room if it's not fun, if it's not liberating, if it's not meaningful? I don't understand it. Yeah? Even if you end up playing Paganini capricces perfectly, if it gives you no joy in life, then do something else. Yeah.
Yes, I had clients saying that they are professional players and they are preparing for an audition for a better orchestra. And the girl was reporting that actually she wasn't even enjoying playing at the orchestra, or she wasn't even enjoying practicing. And what we did, just 4 sessions with me, after the second session she said that she has joy again.
Yes.
And what's my observation is that mindset. What kind of mindset put yourself into? And the mindset you were mentioning, that this is a safe space in the practice room with the lesson, and yes, the big thing we cannot avoid is like experimenting and trying new things, and that's the most important, and failure is a good thing, exactly that we celebrate. I always say that failure is good because you learn that already you know that way, no.
Yes.
So you learn something which doesn't work.
Yeah. Or I mean, if I want to be very strictly and uphold professional standards and demands, I could frame it as saying this, that we learn how to use failure and trying new things as a tool for developing further and to maybe free things up a bit. I mean, some lessons I spend a lot of time just getting to the point of taking that chance, and exposing yourself for making that huge mistake. So then I have to be really careful not to, let's say, yes. Of course, it gets very intense sometimes in the lesson. So sometimes I I'm not as idealistic as I try to convey here.
I see.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and probably as you may be impatient and you want really the result.
Yeah.
Imagine that actually how with ourselves, I play the violin as well, so
Yes,
how much we actually, how much we can be impatient with ourselves, and actually we don't hit our hands, but we hurt ourselves emotionally.
Yes.
And I think with this experimental approach, we can call it many other ways. This is a way of kind of exploring.
Yes.
I know I was asking a lot about your past and how you changed, but do you have any specific moments you can remember where you kind of sense that, this way is better, I can have better results and I play better? So do you have any memorable points of your life when you kind of discovered? Because it's mostly like a mental work, it's a very lonely work to kind of be and...
I mean, for me, a lot of it has come from childhood and almost subliminal early childhood memories that I maybe not even remember consciously, but I grew up in a family with a lot of folk music and folk dancing, but this was not oriented towards performance or perfectionism. This was something that one was doing as a celebration. So music and dance was a communal activity. So my memories of this is my grandfather playing folk music on his fiddle, and very, very joyful, noisy dancing in the living room on the farm. I was passed around the lap to this and this and this aunt or uncle because they took turn dancing. So there may be something there very deep which has to do with, okay, but why doesn't it feel like that? Yeah. Maybe this is some kind of emotional core that I'm striving for when I play. I don't know.
Do you mean, you have a kind of core, deep memory of music which is natural and free?
Maybe not even memory, but it's just
kind of sensation.
Instinct.
So basically you're rooted in music like that. It is joyful, natural.
I wouldn't say it's as strong as this is what I am rooted in, but it seems to be something that I am searching for. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Maybe I'm searching back to sort of, maybe it's this whole question of going back to this prehistorical bliss. Yeah?
Oh, so that's why you like music, because you want to feel again that way.
Yeah, maybe I'm looking for dancing in my grandparents' living room, and maybe I don't remember it, but I remember the feeling somehow. Yeah, could be. Yeah.
So how did you discover in adulthood actually that how to get at least close to this feeling? What happened?
Well, I mean, it's never sort of disappears, but it's very difficult to find it in a way that is communicable to others, so you can sort of join into this, because the whole field of classical music training can be very regimented and can be very strict in what is allowed and what is not. But personally, it's kind of a feeling, okay, this doesn't dance, this doesn't swing, what do we do here? And then I get really bored with those gigs when everybody's sort of just playing the notes and looking sternly and waiting for the paycheck, and that's so boring. Yeah. So then I get impatient. We talked about the impatience before. Sometimes that person is me as well, so I shouldn't be too much of an idealist. But I mean, we're talking about what would be the best case scenario. We're talking about what is the ideal. So maybe these ideas and these memories, when I pay attention to it, it gives me a direction.
Yes, we are talking about the ideal. And I mean, I'm very interested in fact, real life works. Coming and asking questions all about. I would like to understand as much as possible, but mostly to understand your approach. And the hows, you know, what and how you do that you can realize something. Let's go to practicality, I think. Let's choose something you remember recently that was challenging.
Specifically in music making.
Yeah, like maybe some of the pieces in the repertoire, the orchestra or anything, a solo. It's up to you.
Yeah, challenging. That is usually kind of my modus operandi, if you like. one thing I always constantly have to work with myself is that I really, really don't like to practice and prepare, but I really, really must practice and prepare.
Okay.
So getting started on something new is usually a very steep uphill, I think, for me. So
how do you climb that uphill?
Well, first I make sure I set aside the time, and
How much do you need?
just to get started. Yeah, I just need to get started. Yeah, and I need to have a sense of progress and foundation in place before I continue. But I need to get that started. So
is it
now,
like having a sigh and saying, "Okay, I'll do it"?
no, this is like scheduling or reserving a practice room, and having enough time there and to sit down and then to really, really prepare the practice space and then remove all distractions. And if there's things about the music, I go to the copy room in the orchestra and make sure that everything is fluent and right there. And I sharpen the pencils and all these little things. This is my technique, just to create this whole thing that I have all the tools I need and I don't have to go anywhere, because then that's the distraction, and then I sit down and I have to begin now. Yeah.
And you begin, and what's happening?
Well, start at the beginning and see what happens. Yeah. Start practicing very, very slow. Yeah.
So much slower, the pace is going much slower than how the composer recorded?
Oh yeah, it's much slower. Much slower. Yeah. If it's technically or difficult, fast things. Yeah. I have to do it as slow so that I can recognize the movements, and then it becomes automatic. If I can make it automatic in a slow tempo, then I can speed up.
The same works for me too.
Yeah. So that's the very specifics here. Yeah. Mental thing is maybe I've put myself in a situation where I have removed myself a little bit from the opinions of juries, because I don't audition anymore. Yeah. And I did a few auditions after I got my position to see if I can get a higher position or a more prestigious orchestra and all these things. And I think many musicians use auditions as a vessel for self-improvement and just keep the playing going and all that. And I did that a few times. And the last one I did was sort of for a high-profile orchestra, and I used a lot of time. And I got it up to as well as I could, and I stood in front of the jury, and I was sort of like a deer in headlight, to use the idiom. So nothing of what I had prepared worked, and the feeling was like it was 3-4 months of very hard practice that went down the drain, because I played 15 minutes for a jury that really didn't want to listen. And then I thought, next time I'm spending this much time on preparing music, it will be music I choose myself to play for people who actually want to listen. So I didn't stop doing these 3-4 months sort of hard work to prepare something, but I started playing recitals and chamber music instead.
This tells me, I mean, my impression about it is that you didn't see this as a complete failure. I mean, you took your lesson and you realized something. Basically, this experience of not getting the job, I understand, opened your eyes that actually, well, I proved myself, I can do a good preparation routine.
There was nothing wrong with the preparation, no.
And you realize that actually, why not to switch and do it how you describe that, the music I love and for the people I love.
Yes. I mean, to me that was such a mind-blowing thing, because seeking out situations where you play things in order to be evaluated and judged, often by people whose musical tastes and insights at least I don't appreciate, especially value or think are especially high. Then they just happen to be in the jury. It wasn't healthy for me. I mean, it sort of destroyed the impulse and the joy of making music, which I think should be something. Okay, we're back into the territory of naive, but I think it has to be giving, sharing, and playing in audition is the opposite. It's taking. But this was okay. Here's a method. I sort of hacked this. I think I found a way to hack this, to simply have a pile of 4 or 5 really, really simple pieces, always with me, And when people ask, "Oh, Dag, won't you play us something?" Yeah, it could be family members or friends with no background in music. Okay, I showed up and played something nice for regular people with no insight because they thought it was a pretty tune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that trains this impulse instead of performing. Then you're sharing. Yeah,
yeah, I totally agree about that.
Yeah.
I think sharing is important,
Yeah.
and actually, how I imagine auditions, how I auditioned for my amateur orchestra at my university where I teach in Budapest.
Yeah.
I was scared out of my mind.
Yes.
And do you know what? Actually,
terrifying. Yeah.
for me, that was the kind of huge respect towards the professional conductor who leads the orchestra.
Yeah.
I couldn't concentrate very much. I did much worse, and the feedback was that okay. Yeah, really bad with sight reading. I can see that you can play the violin. So go to the second violins, that's fine.
So you had all the monsters just welling up and screaming at you, yes?
Yeah, but very interesting how I actually imagine that it works. And when the client is coming to me, I describe that. Look at this audition thing like going for a date.
Yeah.
You are looking for the right people for yourself,
Yes.
and also they're looking for the right person for themselves.
Yes.
Is there any chemistry between the two of you?
Yeah.
It's like how many times we went on a date. It's a nice boy for me and it's a girl, but something is missing.
Yeah.
And I think if we take these like that we went on a date with each other, we didn't fall in love with each other.
No.
And that's it.
That's not a defeat. That's just information.
Yes, and it puts the whole thing into different perspective. And also,
that's a clever hack. It's a clever way to think of it.
And this thing that you were talking about, the joy and giving.
Yes.
And I think we all
just having fun playing. Yeah.
All that.
Yeah.
Also, other musicians, when they ask me and they are very kind of into their mind. I mean, I talked to some of the students here as well and at Crescendo, and some of them, they were very afraid of their playing if they do a mistake or thinking I'm not good enough. And just again the approach of how you look at your playing. I mean, playing music is one, you love it, so you enjoy yourself, but you give pleasure for the audience.
Yes.
You basically provide a service.
Yes.
And one girl was saying that, wow, this is an interesting thing to look at it.
Yeah. The whole thing that models this, but is also necessary, is of course also the need for improvement and the need for development and to grow as a musician and be more and more accomplished. Yeah. And how to communicate that and to effectively put a demand on people on the work and improvement without sort of being abusive or a horrible person. I mean, how do I do that? I'm asking. Yeah. Because it's necessary, yeah.
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking, yeah.
How to?
I mean, you place a demand on someone, yeah. You have to learn this by next week, or you will not. We can't use you in the orchestra, yeah. For instance, yeah. It's necessary, yeah. In any craft or subject or profession, you have to have professional standards.
For me, this orchestra thing sounds extremely crazy.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine a theatre company with the actors working in the company having a performance performed within a week.
Yeah.
They have months.
Yes.
2 months at least.
Yes.
I mean, how is it possible that musicians are demanded to...
Because we take shortcuts. Because we have the music in front of us, we look at it always, and we have the pulse always. So the timing is always something that is predictable and given. And the technical aspects of playing. So I can sit down technically play the Brahms First Symphony, and then I can contribute in the symphony orchestra. But of course the magic happens when you...
This is a very high level of being. Cognitively, mentally.
Okay.
I think what you are required as musicians to do.
Yeah.
You have to be, you need to know your instrument constantly. You cannot lose your ability of knowing your instrument.
Yeah.
And you have to be readers, as sight readers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible ability again. It's a skill which can be learned, but good training.
Yeah, but any kind of occupation or craft has their professional requirements. So, I mean, playing music in a symphony orchestra in the classical style, has some very particular requirements which are very different from what is usual today. But there must be professional demands in any kind of...
yes, I'm saying that of course there must be. Yeah, you are given the pace of the piece because the conductor is there, you are given the sheet music, therefore you need to be very quick reading and playing. So two things.
Yes.
And plus, if you are good enough, then the music is also coming, not just the notes.
Yeah, but now I'm 55 and I played the Liszt Brahms symphonies many times. So I sort of know where it goes. So, and that was sort of, that goes back to the challenge of being a new musician coming out of college. Now I've been through that repertoire. So now, for instance, I may not have to practice that much because I know the Greek piano concerto. I played it many times, so I know what the difficult bits are. So I can spend 30 seconds, remind myself.
Yes, but you have 30 years of playing such things.
Yes.
But someone who is just a student.
Exactly.
You know.
And raising kids, and paying a mortgage, and fixing the car, and being a wife.
Yeah, and developing an enormous repertoire as well at the same time.
Yes.
But for me, to conclude, towards the end, it's all about love yourself. And be patient, and be curious, and experimental.
Yeah. I think there's two thoughts you need to be able to have in your mind. Provided you do the work, provided you honestly do the work to improve, then you can tell yourself, okay, I have done a good job now, I can be proud of this. This is something that I stand for, this is something I'm proud of presenting, and nobody should tell me anything else. This is my integrity, I believe in this. At the same time, okay, this can develop. Also, take pleasure in the work you have done at the level it is at, if you have done the work, and then also be always aware, okay, it needs to develop further, both at.
Just to give one hint, how do they measure? Because it's very subjective to take their pride and take pleasure out of your work, because you just mentioned your student ages ago that just minor mistake and was scared of that it was the end of the world.
And you can always practice in half an hour more.
But doesn't take you that much further.
No.
With the
No. So I mean, you just have to find that, draw the line somewhere yourself. Maybe it's somewhere between killing yourself practicing too much in the practice room and having a social life, allowing yourself to share a nice friend with friends.
For me, it sounds like drawing a bar. That now
but it's a very fussy grey area.
You cannot do more right now. Is it like having a bar to choose that? Okay, for now this is it. Cannot do more. I did my best.
But it's not a very strictly delineated bar. But I mean, it's just the amount of work I put into something. Okay, I can't do this any better, and I spent so much time.
And it's time to go, and that's it.
Okay, that's a limitation. Yeah.
And you took the pride that however I did my best, I could.
Yes.
And this is therefore I'm good because I did my best.
Now.
Good now.
Right
Not
now.
for tomorrow and week.
No.
To be good enough for the moment.
Yes. If you have done the work.
If you have, yes.
Yeah.
To say that, I done my work. Yeah. I had no time to do more. Yeah. Where I am now. Yeah. And that's powerful. Yeah. I can be proud of myself.
I can be satisfied with the work I have done and the level I've achieved based on that work. However it is, if you have done the work. So I guess maybe there is where the demand comes. Okay, you must do the work to the best of your ability. But if you have done that, nobody can ask anything more.
So
if
you
continue to do that, you will develop and you will get better.
That's a nice final word.
Is that a conclusion?
I feel so.
Okay, 2 lines. Great.
Do you have anything to suggest?
I'm sure, but my brain is fried now.
So this was the interview with Dag Eriksen, first tutti violin at the Bergen Philharmonic Orchestra in Norway. If you have questions for Dag, or if you have questions in general, just ask them in the comment section below. Also, if you like the content I produce, please do subscribe to my channel. Next time I will publish the interview I recorded with Christian Studler, professor of flute at the University of Music in Bern, Switzerland. His approach is very human-centered, and in case you haven't heard of Christian's lectures and his style of teaching, please do come along and listen to the interview with Christian as well, as it will be, I think, quite an eye-opening talk. And in the same time, please keep going with your self-love and practicing, and always remember that done is better than perfect.